A hospital worker comes and puts a breakfast tray next to my bed a little while later. She efficiently checks my order, then leaves for her next room. Time slips away as I sit and stare at the empty bed that brought so much bad luck to two people in less than a day. Good morning, I'm Susan, and I'll be your nurse today. A chipper woman with a bleach blonde bob comes in and writes her name on the whiteboard in my room, erasing the previous name from 2 days ago. Do you have any news about my mother? I ask hopefully. Susan stops writing mid-swoosh in her last N. No, she says, capping the pen and turning to face me. All I know is what I was told at turnover. Open heart surgery can take quite a while. For the time being, no news is good news. With luck, we'll hear more later this afternoon. She gives a small, tight smile and turns to leave the room. Susan, I ask, and she turns back around. The nurse assigned to me last night. Do you know her? With short blonde hair, brown eyes, short, about my height. Evie, she bites her ruby-painted lips. Yes, I turned over with her this morning and she told me about your mother. Is she? I swallow, trying to phrase the question without sounding crazy. Was she okay when she left? Susan's brows furrow, drawing a deep crease in her forehead. Yes, of course. Why? Did something happen when she was in here? Susan takes a few steps back into the room. No, I hurry to deflect her sudden attention. I don't know. The more concerned Susan looks, the more I wish I had never brought up the subject at all. I must sound ridiculous. Honestly, I am being ridiculous. She just seemed like she was favoring her left side over her right. I was worried she may be hurt. I wave my hand around my face. It's all so new, so much body language and cues I never imagined. I sigh and fall back onto my pillows, suddenly heavy and drained. I'm just not sure how to connect what I'm seeing to what I already know about the world. Susan smiles, broader this time. Her whole frame relaxes and turns to something like, pity maybe? Don't worry, it will all become second nature soon enough. And you should only be here a few more days under observation. Then you'll be out exploring the world at large again. She snaps her fingers, which reminds me. You listed your mother as your primary caretaker after the operation, helping you during recovery, correct? Yes, I answer. It's just me and her at home. I go to a community college and have a job at a call center. But I took a leave of absence for both while I recover. Well, even in a best-case outcome, your mother will not be much help. In fact, she's going to need significant help herself. I'll notify the social worker to come up. They'll discuss other options with you. I smile. It feels nice planning what I'll do when I take Mom home, regardless if it will actually happen. Thank you. I watch television for a while, although I alternate doing it with my eyes open and closed. It is amazing to see actors and actresses I pictured in my head using their voices. Some are so drastically different from what I imagined, it's hard to focus on the story. Sets, scenes, and shows are radically different in some respects. Soon, the novelty wears off, and it is just too much change. I leave the news playing in the background, but I'm not paying attention. Lunch comes, delivered by the same person with the same routine. I don't want to be overanxious and page the nurse all day for news about my mother. But there's not much to think about in this small, isolated room. I decide to eat lunch and page the nursing desk after I finish if there still isn't any news. My appetite is pretty limited after the surgery and the excitement from last night. I tear pieces of the sandwich apart, mostly moving them around my plate. Just as I push the plate away and take the last sip of the ginger ale that came with lunch, a light knock on the door makes my heart leap with anticipation and dread at the same time. Annabel Perez, a tall man with dark hair, peers into the room. Yes, that's me. I hastily push away the rolling table holding the tray. Do you have news about my mother? The man looks down at his papers and shuffles them for a few seconds, rearranging their order. No, I'm sorry. I'm only here to see you. He takes a few more steps into the room and sits on the edge of the empty bed, the one that held Shelby yesterday and my mom last night. My name is Dr. Murphy. I'm here to go over the results of your MRI. I look at him for a few more minutes, expecting him to go on or explain more. But he seems to be engrossed in his papers again. What happened to Dr. Philban? He did the surgery. Why isn't he here discussing this with me? Dr. Murphy looks up and leans back a little further on the bed, holding himself up with an arm propped behind him. But when the stack of papers wobble on his lap, he quickly shifts and uses both hands to steady them. He finally ends up just perching awkwardly on the edge of the bed. Your condition has progressed outside of Dr. Philban's expertise. He is phenomenal with the anatomy and inner workings of the eye. The physical eye is healing beautifully. Better than anticipated. He pauses again, shifting his weight, then crossing his legs. He moves the stack of papers and clipboard several times before he's satisfied with their position on his lap. However, we do have some concerns about how your brain is mapping the new input from your eyes. That's where I take over. My field of expertise is in neurobiology, so I'll be working with you during the next phase of recovery. I shift in my bed. All Dr. Murphy's movements make me uncomfortable. Concerns? Is there something wrong? This procedure is new, Annabel. You are one of the first to undergo it, and we're not sure what is typical for recovery and what isn't. However, from the MRI yesterday, we see visual inputs activating parts of the brain that aren't normally associated with sight. He stands, pacing to the front of my bed. What does this mean? Do I see things differently from other people? Without thinking, I take the hair tie from around my wrist and pull my long, dark hair into a comfortable ponytail. Suddenly, the room feels hot and small. It is very early, Annabel. We want to be cautious about making too many assumptions from a single MRI. He takes a deep breath and leans forward over the end of my bed. We are going to work with you and explore every option. But I want to prepare you now in case of the worst possible outcome. We aren't sure the neural connections are stable and we can't guarantee your sight is permanent. What are you saying? That I may go blind again? Whether it is a reaction from your body or there are other complications that force us to reverse the surgery, it is a possibility.